Welcome to another episode of the Nines presented by AT&T. I'm Monte Cristo. I'm back in the Cloud9 studio once again, and yet one more time. We are going to have a League of Legends player on this show, one that didn't play this past week because he had a bye. It is going to be Zven from the Cloud9 LCS team, AD Carry, who will be joining us. So welcome to the show, Zven. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Your hair is looking very neat today.
Thanks.
Did you get up early and do your hair just for the show?
No, I just showered.
Oh, okay.
Nothing else. But thank you, sir.
So let's start with what have you been doing during your week off? You had the bye. I noticed you are now rank 2 in solo queue again. Have you been solo queuing a lot?
Yeah, unfortunately I lost my rank 1 to Someday. Actually, first I lost to PowerOfEvil, and then to Someday. I took it back again yesterday. I played again at Someday actually last night, and then he had jungler who was 12-0, so I lost and whatever, man. But yeah, we've just been scrimming every day. This is like the playoff League of Scrims, where you can tell people are a little bit more serious, I guess, and the scrims are a little bit higher quality than usual, and it's been going good for us last week. So I feel good right now about our scrims.
Has it been an advantage for you when it comes to having this new patch for the playoffs, getting that extra week to kind of figure it out, to watch some of the games that happened this past weekend on the patch, to figure out what's going to be strong in this new meta?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think that some teams that played Sunday, like for example TSM versus GGS, right? It was Thursday,
yes,
which was like 3 days after Sunday matches of LCS. So I think that since some teams like TSM took Monday off, right? They have Tuesday and Wednesday just to scrim. So they had like 10 games of scrims to prepare for GGS, for example, and 10 for GGS, right? So I think it's obvious that some teams won't be as prepared for those games as for the next round. So therefore, some teams came in very unprepared. I think TSM, for example, came in very unprepared for GGS, and they were like caught off guard and outdrafted every game. And I think the bye helps us not be that, So I think the bye is a huge advantage over other teams, and also it hides what we play from others, so we can see, let's see FlyQuest, they played 5 games versus Evil Geniuses, so we can watch the draft, analyze it, watch their gameplay, look for the tendencies, and they have nothing on us at all. They haven't even scrimmed us for like months, so they have no idea what we play in scrims and what's going to happen on stage. So yeah, it's a big advantage.
How do you just decide who you guys are going to scrim when you don't know who Team Liquid is going to select after the first round of games? Because it could have been any of the 4 teams in the upper bracket that you guys were playing. Does that mean you were mostly scrimming Dignitas on 100 Thieves, or how were you selecting your... You just laugh. How are you selecting your scrim points? Or Team Liquid, I guess. You can't play them, right?
Yeah, it's just hard. Like, we scrimmed mostly like TL, and we also scrimmed recently, like before the playoff week, we scrimmed the weak teams a lot. So 100 and Dignitas, like actually what you said was true. We scrimmed those teams more than other teams. We had like a scrim break, I guess, from TSM. We haven't scrimmed them. We played them once yesterday, and before that we haven't played them for like 2 full months almost, something like that. And FlyQuest we haven't scrimmed for the whole split. We played them once after week 1 was over, and then we haven't played them since. So we have like a scrim hiatus with those teams, I guess. So they actually don't matter. So it was just TL, EG, 100, Dignitas that we've been scrimming the most last 2 weeks. So that's okay.
Who's been the best practice opponent so far? Obviously, you don't have to say why.
Yeah, so in week 9, before LCS last week, we were playing against TL and we got stomped. And we lost to EG one day, and I was like, whoa, we suck right now. We played week 9, we almost lost to Dignitas, who are obviously terrible. And I was like, whoa, this is really not what I was hoping for, right? Then, in this week of playoffs, the playoff week, we scrimmed TL again, we scrimmed GGS, we scrimmed TSM, and we scrimmed EG. And we stomped everyone except for TSM. And TSM actually played pretty well in our scrims yesterday. So far, the best team we scrimmed out of the 4 have been TSM. So that's kind of surprising.
Interesting.
Yeah, I thought that they looked really bad versus GGS, but they did pretty well in our scrims yesterday. It might have been one of those off days where we lost some games in like 5 minutes basically, but I think that they played pretty decent. I think Björksen is still really good, and they finally figured out how to play around Spica, for example. So I think they'll be better in their next round. Besides, I think that some teams like GGS, play like a little crazy in scrims. The games they play are very aggressive. They're very quickly over one way or another. So it's scrims, I guess. But I think the best teams right now are TL and TSM, besides us. But I think we're a lot better now than we were in Week 9. And teams want to see what's... fans will be surprised at what they will see on Thursday against FlyQuest.
Because of your picks, or because of the meta, or because you're good now? Which one of the reasons? All of them?
I think for a while after the meta change from like the Killista Vars Ezreal Affiliates patch, it changed into like something new, and we didn't know what to play. And we were like not sure what to play and which roles and what to do with it. But now it feels like we have the draft like downloaded again. We know what to do when, and we know what to ban against who and what sides, what to first pick, what to pick if that's banned. So we have like a more clear plan with draft now, and I feel like our play is also a lot better right now. Like, yeah, I don't know how to explain it, but just everything is better right now. The draft is more clear now to everyone, and we have clear identity in our drafts. Before we had these terrible drafts where we had like double mages versus Caitlyn Morgana, like in TSM in last week. We had like Kennen and Asir versus Kaelin Moore, Volibear terrible, of course, and it was just bad. And versus like Dignitas, we gave them set 4-5 on blue side, which is terrible. So I think our draft has been lacking for a while now, and now it's getting better. And I think we're looking like we're in playoffs form. So I have a lot more confidence than you would think from our Week 9 performance.
You did win both of your games in Week 9, to be fair.
Yeah, but one game was versus CLG,
Yes.
who are shit, and the other game was versus Dignitas, and it was who are shit, and it was a 40-minute game.
Yes, and?
Yeah, so...
I will say, though, having watched those games, one of the things that was encouraging to me about your Dignitas win is, yes, it was a long game. Yes, it had a lot of mistakes, but you guys were doing better at being patient around like the control mage style that has been played by Team Liquid especially, but has been more dominant in the meta right now. And then the other game versus CLG, you played more early game and you just smashed them with a more, I would say, 2020 classic C9 composition. So at least my takeaway from the Dignitas game was it the best game ever? No. But did it actually show that you could win a game more deliberately using control mages? Yes. And that was new, I would say.
Yeah. I think that when you think of like Orianna, Asir, plus a tank top and a control mage comp with a tank, control mage, some sort of AD carry and a tank support, you think of like FlyQuest or Team Liquid, right? When you think of like a Galio or a Kiana or a Rumble mid, you think of C9, right? So we've been trying to expand a little bit in that department and play some Orianna, some Asir, try to like cover all our bases in the future in case that becomes meta, right? So I don't think we're the best at that playstyle of like tank, mage, late game kind of team fighting thing. We're a lot better when we can just pull the trigger and fight whenever we want, and we're a lot better when we can win the first 25 minutes of the game. That's where we excel, I think. So I think now we found a way to do that again in playoffs. So I think that style we used to have and smash people with is back. So
nice.
I feel confident.
I look forward to seeing those picks. Speaking of picks, I do want to take a look at some of the meta shifts that we saw this past week by looking at the champions that were played in some of these matches, most particularly by EG, FlyQuest, and Golden Guardians, which are kind of the teams that I think have looked, particularly strong and have maintained their upper bracket performance, with the exception of EG. But as we kind of look over this right now, starting with Golden Guardians, one of the things that was interesting was to see Demonte on the Ziggs, which is another style of like wave clear and control mage. What are your feelings on the way that Golden Guardians played the Ziggs? Because it seemed to really catch TSM off guard, and that it was part of their 3-0 victory.
I think GGS had a lot better prep for TSM than the other way around. They came into the game with a very clear, draft phase plan, and in the game plan, it was the same. And TSM seemed like they were caught off guard by not only the Morgana pick from Hui and FBI, but also by the bans on mid. It seemed like Bjergsen was struggling to find an impact in the game. He was playing against, seems like an AFK mid clear champion, right?
Yep.
And when your team is losing, there's so much more pressure on Bjergsen to carry, but a lot of the champs were banned. So it felt like when TSM counterpicked themselves with like Thresh into Morg, Bar into Morg, and even in game 3, they didn't have a good matchup. So it felt like GGS had a good prep for TSM and not the other way around. And they just said, okay, let's ban out Bjergsen. Let's pick a mid-mage champ like Oriana or Six that can't lose lane. Just farm a lane game, you outscale, and then bot lane wins because TSM will just drop themselves into a bad matchup, right? So it felt like they're just unprepared. I also think that, well, it's like kind of a meme at this point, but TSM did not play very well around the Mordekaiser, I think. I think the Mordekaiser got a lot of ults on people that are outraging him. Like, once kill and eat forward into him, no one bought QSS, Ash didn't space him. Like, things like that happened a lot in the series, which was like uncharacteristic for Doublelift to make mechanical mistakes like that. But I think that TSM now has the draft figured out a little bit more. They know what to pick and what to ban better, so that blind doesn't play like a match they can't lane in. And I also think that Tweets probably has something prepared now for Morgana blind pick. I think that going on stage with the mindset that if they pick Morik, I can't pick his Thresh is not good enough, and he probably realized that himself. I saw him in solo queue playing some like Karma and some Soraka and stuff like that, so I think he's preparing something for that. At least in my solo queue games, he was playing like Soraka and Karma and Syra and shit like that, so it's clear they had like a talk like, hey guys, we must find a counter to Morgana or we're going to get outdrafted every game.
Is it, as the meta shifts in AD carry, I think, to couple with the control mages, so to talk about why this is happening, because we haven't seen a lot of buffs or nerfs to the AD carries that were stronger in previous patches. Do you think it's more because of the control mages that are entering the meta, that we're seeing more long range or team fighting or utility AD carries like Ashe, or we didn't see Jhin in LCS, but we have seen Jhin in other regions, or Caitlyn, Senna, these kind of AD carries that just provide a little bit more team fighting presence or engage in the case of Ashe? Is that why we're seeing more of them, or what do you think is triggering the shift in the AD carry meta?
I mean, I think some ADCs got nerfed, like Aspen took a small hit to his E cooldown and twice, I think, and they have failures damage once again, and his utility on his chakram for Baron damage. And I think that Aphelios and Ezreal got nerfed a little bit, but they also suffered from the fact that the meta is better now. For example, for Aphelios, he's really bad versus mages. Like, look at Golden Blues champions, look at PowerOfEvil champions, look at Diamante champions. They're all good versus Aphelios, right? So he's just not in the meta anymore because he can't win against those champs. He gets zoned, by those champions. So I think he disappeared from the meta because of the mid-lane meta of mages, right? I think for Ezreal, he got nerfed a little bit too much, and his laning is pretty weak. Kaelan got buffed, I think, a little bit too much. She was already like, okay, right? But then they gave her a small buff on top of her getting buffed previously in old patches, and now she's just super strong because Fire Cannon Stormwizard is a really good combo with IE. So it feels like Kaelan's like old power hole in the mid game isn't actually a power hole anymore. She feels really fine on two items with Stormrazor, right?
With Stormrazor IE, like that's like a nasty like burst combo. And once you get the rapid fire cannon too, if you have a headshot on your first shot, the range on that thing is ridiculous, and you can chunk somebody down to half HP with one shot.
Yeah, Fire Cannon gives Kaelan an 800 range all attack, and if that's a crit, which it most likely is because you have 75% crit chance, and you have a headshot prepared, you can do like half HP of 80 carries HP, and it slows them too, right? It slows them down. Gives you movement speed from fleet, and then you hit them one more time with a crit, and they're actually gonna die. So it's like kind of oppressive, and the traps can do like so much damage. And if Kaelan is winning, she can walk into the Baron Pit or the Dragon Pit, put traps in the blue choke and the ramp choke.
It's crazy to me that you have 5 traps on Caitlyn now since they reworked that. That seems like crazy for objective control. Yeah,
the traps have low CD or low charge timer. They have a 4.5-second duration, and they have almost no mana cost. So it feels like Kaelan is very oppressive to play against when you're behind. And the only thing that counters Kaelan is champs that like really don't scale well at all, like Syra and Karma support and like Ashe, for example. Like these champs that win lane against Syra all get outscaled. Jhin is one that does well in lane, but he doesn't counter her. And if Jhin falls behind, he's useless. Besides, Jhin can't kill tank, but Kaelan can later in the game.
Well, so I mean, the thing is like when you have that same build on Rapid Fire Cannon, IE, and Stormrazor on both Jhin and Caitlyn, It feels to me that Jhin is basically just the worst form of Caitlyn because he's gated by the number of shots, but they're still poking at they play the same way, right? Like you would play the team fight the same way of like trying to walk up and get that initial poke and playing a little bit more safely. But Jhin can't auto attack as quickly or can't burn tanks the same way, right?
Yeah, like Jhin is good when he gets a lead and then he can one-shot people with like one attack. That's his play style more than anything. And if his ult is useful because they have like a control mage mid, like Syndra, and you have like, let's say you have GP or Rumble in your team, you can like double ult them and they can't move. That's like Jin's area of excellence, right? When he can like gun people down with the ult that can't dodge it. When everyone is squishy, he can actually like one-tap people with like one auto attack. So I think that's Jin's power, but he's more of an answer or like a neutralizer, same for Ashe, than a winning lane. Picking Ashe and something like Syra or I don't know, Karma, Soraka, whatever, into Kate Morik is a winning lane, but it's risky because if you make one mistake, you are outscaled already. So it's just oppressive to play against Caitlyn nowadays, and that's why she's so high prior in all regions right now. She scales well while having a good laning phase, and she's also hard to play against in lane if you have Kate Morik. So yeah, Caitlyn's very strong right now.
So we saw a lot of Graves, as you can see from these picks last week as well, and that's a champ that we really haven't seen Blabber play up until the last week of LCS, where you guys played it in the CLG game, I believe, and you did very well. Is this something that you guys have been working on also? Because it hasn't been a champion, it's something that we think about a lot when we think about like Svenskeren, but not really with Blabber.
Yeah, I think for a while in the summer split, we were just like, let's just ban Graves on both sides, and let's just pick, Olaf and Lee Sin, the champs that we're actually good at, that fit our team comp, because Graves is a very farm for late game kind of champ. He doesn't do much in the game. He just farms for late game and then AFKs, and he carries it later in the game. But our style is more, I wouldn't say relying on a jungler, but we work better when Blabber can make plays. So I think Graves isn't a champ that fits in that well, but he can play it well mechanically. But we've been trying to, implement Graves into our gameplay and therefore make someone else the playmaker, right? So have a support with CC or a mid laner with CC like Gaia, for example, so that someone has CC for Graves to be the carry, right? But yeah, I think we work better when Blabber's playing, Set or Lee Sin or Olaf, if not banned, obviously. So for a long time, we just banned Graves both sides, but now we're playing it as well to try to, cover those bases that we didn't before. Same for the Oriana thing. So, yeah, but we're playing it now. I think we're okay at it.
One of the things I wanted to talk to you about this week is to take a look at this clip from FlyQuest where they played in Game 1 against EG. And it's a team fight where they were playing the Swain in the mid lane on PowerOfEvil. And I really loved this pick because EG was playing a style with the Galio that is something similar to what we might see C9 play in many games traditionally this year. And it was a great counter, right? You can see PowerOfEvil successfully zoning 4 of the players off by using his ult and Zhonya's in order to heal back up. And are you concerned about this at all when it comes to FlyQuest? Because I feel like this is a strategy that might be effective against you guys as well.
I knew they were going to pick Swain in this game because PowerOfEvil has been spamming in solo queue. Like, he has, I think 30 or 40 games in the last 2 weeks of solo queue. So I was surprised that EG picked a comp that is, very low range. Like, their highest range character is like Graves and Ashe, right? Which is, not even, high range. So when you pick Hecarim and Galio in Swain, it gets hard because you can't hit him without him healing off you. So I thought it was a really good pick from FlyQuest, and I'm not concerned with it, but you have to be careful you don't run through a comp where, wow, Swain can just kill our whole team 1v5, right? So make sure you have some range champs, some kite champs, and you'll be fine. I think that Swain is not a big concern for us, but it is one of those champs that PowerOfEvil plays that most people don't play, so you have to keep in mind, if you go Asir, he'll pick Kog'Maw. If you go Galio plus Hecker on top, then he will go Swain, right? So it's one of those things you have to keep in mind when playing SPOE, that he can play those champions. So
what I really liked about this draft, I thought it was a really good draft from FlyQuest, is that, only the Hecarim has backline access out of all of these champions. Otherwise, they're trying to, well, the Galio could if you get into that back line, but as long as you zone those two out, like we see in this fight, like they play it perfectly by collapsing onto the Hecarim while zoning out the Galio, right? Gold Glue really doesn't have a way to play this engagement. So not only did the draft work really well, but they clearly knew how they were going to play these team fights by focusing onto the back line. And, they have the Shen as well to protect just in case anybody gets back there. So I thought this was really a clever draft and a very difficult game for EG to win.
I mean, I think FlyQuest played this fight fine, but I think EG played it terribly. I think Turtle is like frontlining in this fight. He's like actually mid-range of Hecarim. And Hecarim for some reason doesn't ult him, and when he E's him, the Galio doesn't press ult on Hecarim, which is really, really weird for me because killing was mid-range of Hecarim with no flash, and thrashing killing was staggering. So I think if Hecarim presses ult on killing there, and he gets ulted by Galio, they might be able to win that. But to be fair, like killing Kaelin in this game won't actually win the fight for them. It will just kill Kaelin, right? And then Swain still killed everyone anyways. So yeah, I think EG with a bad fight here. Fight starts poorly. Hecarim's engage here doesn't actually do anything. Like he gets in here, but no one ults him or helps him. I think he should E Kaelin, and then once Kaelin uses E, he should just ult him. And Galio ults in. Let Ashe, Tom, and Graves deal with Swain. If they can't, then well, the game is over anyways. So you have to try something at this point. You can't just like play front line back line with Swain and Hecarim, because obviously Hecarim will die before Swain dies. So yeah. But I think FlyQuest had a pretty good series. First two games they were very dominant. They kind of dropped the ball a little bit in game 3 and game 4. We thought that they did it on purpose maybe to, I don't know, make Fly play against TL. Because seemingly Fly wanted to play against TL, which is interesting. So,
I mean, what do you make of that? Like, we can stop with the clip now. We've seen it enough times. But what do you make of that? Because you guys, the last time you played against FlyQuest, you won pretty convincingly, and I think it was in week 6. Yeah. So it's been a while since you guys have played them. Is this the opponent that you would have preferred in this matchup? I'm kind of surprised you got them, given that Golden Guardians looked really good against TSM.
Yeah, so TL said that they thought TSM wasn't very good and that they chose them because they think they can do better. But I also think that Fly has a good matchup versus TL because they play the same style of tanks, mage mid, sort of carry ball lane, tank support, whatever jungle, it doesn't matter. And both teams are very like late game teams. They have very long games, and Fly is the same team as Team Liquid, except TL has a weaker top laner, but a strong ball laner. So it's like one side stronger and mid jungle is equal. I think Fly mid jungle works.
I would say that Santorin is probably better than Broxa at this stage, personally.
I think Jensen is probably better than PowerOfEvil as a whole, but Santorin and yeah, it does. I think Santorin and PowerOfEvil as a unit are better because they understand each other's playstyle very well. And I think that PowerOfEvil in Syndra, Orianna, Azir matchups is as good as Jensen, if not better. So I think FlyQuest likes TL as the matchup, and I think TL probably knows that. And I think that the way GS won against TSM, I don't see that happening versus TL because they can't just win lane, win game against TL because TL is way more prepared for that kind of matchup. And I think Core GJ, if he has to, is willing to play, Morgana counters. So I think the TSM GS series was a, one-off maybe. So yeah, I guess TL feels confident. Also, maybe TL scrimmed GGS and Fly previously, and they were like stomping GGS. Who knows? But yeah, I'm happy we play against FlyQuest because we are undefeated with FlyQuest the whole year. I think we have lost one game Fly in spring or in summer, including finals and 2 games in both splits. So yeah, I feel happy that it chose FlyQuest for us. So all good for me.
I mean, I can see that. I guess the way I look at it from TL's perspective is that I think the series versus FlyQuest, were they to play it for the reasons you said, would probably be closer because they're so similar in style and skill level. But I think TL comes out on top in 4 or 5 games. My concern with them playing against Golden Guardians is I feel like it's going to be really one-sided either way, but there's a chance that they just get destroyed by Golden Guardians if they play, a more high-tempo early game style and can take that advantage. So I do have some questions about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can see it, but I think TL is way better at dealing with not getting run over than TSM was. And I also think that TL will be more prepared to not counterpick Morgana with Thresh and Bard, right? So I think that TL will have a much better game plan. And they also have some games from GGS to watch, and GGS probably doesn't know much about TL, so you can expect GGS to have 3 games of winning ball lane on both sides while plan picking Morgana, right, which is more useful than Thresh or Bard. So I think TL has much better prep for this match than TSM did, and TL chose GGS, so they must have some sort of like scrim info from earlier in the split, or I don't know, confidence versus GGS.
That's fair. Let's take a look at some of the stats provided by Microsoft as we talk about your specific matchup right now when you go up against FlyQuest. So I did pick some mid lane stats to start things off with before we go into team stats to kind of get your take here. First off, these are just playoff stats between PowerOfEvil and Golden Glue that we saw in the direct head-to-head matchup that went to all 5 games. I mean, I think Golden Glue has had a solid performance on EG. I think he's doing the job that they expect him to do, which is being stable and, you know, playing at least, you know, some of the roam style champs, some of the control mage style champs. Obviously, he's not going to be as excellent as PowerOfEvil because this is a really, honestly, a great meta for PowerOfEvil if you look at it. So what were your thoughts kind of this matchup in that best of 5?
I think Golden Glue did fine in all the games, honestly. I don't think that he was the reason that his team was winning or losing. I think he had some bad moments, like the Galio game, he started 0-3, right? But he came back and did pretty well. And I think that saying he was the best player in the series isn't like super crazy. So I think he did fine. And like things like DPM is always going to be like inflated because Pao played Cock more, right? And he just presses old pokes people. And obviously damage share is like Huni plays no tanks, right? Like Huni plays Gnar and GP only. So when your team does more damage, you do less, right? And this guy's playing Graves every game. Santorin plays Volibear 2 games, right? So like damage percentage or DPM is like stats I don't really care too much about, but I definitely think that PoE from the eye test has a lot more impact in the games because Fly as a whole understands that PoE is our carry. They gank his lane a lot. They try to help him. They give him priority picks. Always counter pick if possible. They use bans if he needs it, and Ignar runs mid. So I think FlyQuest understands that PoE is their carry most of the games, and EG doesn't seem like they funnel into Golden Glue very much. So obviously he will have worse stats and he will look worse. But I think that he's been performing, I think, pretty decently on like Galio and Zoe, for example, and TF has been okay for him as well.
Yeah,
I don't think that he's a hard carry player necessarily, but he can play the supportive role pretty well, I think.
Well, you also see that when he's playing more of the roaming champs, it does give him a slight advantage in the kill participation percentage as well.
Yeah.
Let's go to some PowerOfEvil versus Niski stats, and this is going to be for the entire summer split as well. And so PowerOfEvil obviously has more games played because he played in the playoffs. He played 5 games in the playoffs, but I think it's interesting to take a look at this because it's kind of what you would expect thinking about the styles of these 2 players. Like Niski has higher first blood kill assist percentage because he's often roaming. He has higher kill percentage for the same reason. Lower gold per minute. He's often sacrificing that lane gold in order to go help other people out. Lower DPM because of the kind of champions that he's playing, and lower damage percentage as well for that exact same reason because he does tend to be more of that supportive style of player helping out his side lanes, right? Where PowerOfEvil, he's soaking all that farm, getting a bunch of items and playing Orianna and Azir and dealing a bunch of damage in these team fights.
Yeah, I mean, I think like PowerOfEvil plays a lot longer games than C9. I think C9's average game time is way lower than FlyQuest. So obviously in a legacy fight, you can do like thousands of damage in like 2 seconds, whereas at 20 minutes you can't do anything like that, and the games often end without contest for us. Like a lot of games in this split were just like 25 minutes stomps that had no interaction in them. It was just like one team fight, it's over, right? So I think it's normal that his damage numbers are lower. Also, once again, PoE's team has a tank jungler, often like Trundle or Volibear, whereas Blabber is not really one of those kind of people. He's more of a Lee Sin and Gragas and Olaf kind of guy, right? So And top lane, we haven't played a tank yet. I think for Licorice, he's played Jace and Gangplank and that kind of stuff. So I think it's normal that the damage share is lower when you have 4 people doing damage versus like 3 in FlyQuest, or sometimes 2. So I think it's all good that damage stats are lower. Game time and stuff like that matters a lot more. Champion picks, Galio does less damage last year. It's what it is. So yeah.
What impresses me about the stat, though, from PowerOfEvil is that he has such a high kill participation, even though he does stay in lane a lot more of the time. I just think as a player, I'm a big PowerOfEvil fan as a viewer, and I love his game sense and his map sense and his kind of awareness of where to be in team fights or where to be on the map. And I think that he gets a lot more done on the map than you might expect from a more traditional control mage player, which I think is impressive.
I think that FlyQuest understands really well that PoE is their carry, and they try to not make bot side volatile. They try to fight dragons with him, right? They don't try to just make plays without him, and they include him as a mage in all their plays. They try to bring him to team fights, and they try to play around him. And that's why his first blood kill assist ratio isn't that bad, because a lot of fights in FlyQuest starts around mid or around neutrals like Baron, Herald, Dragons. I think that FlyQuest is good at including him in the game. Sometimes when you have a mage and they have Galio TF, your sides get run over and roamed on. But I think PowerOfEvil and his team understand how to play through his lane phase strength with those mages who are good in lane, and then they bring him to fights and they make very good use of him. And no one in FlyQuest dies while, let's say Niski is roaming, right? They understand how to play safe, wait for his one-item power spike where he wins lane against TF or Galio, and yeah, I think Fly really understands their identity as a team, whereas other teams don't really get that, right? So.
Well, Mr. Zven, what an excellent segue into our next stat page, which is your team stats. Wow.
Oh.
So again, FlyQuest has played 5 more games than you have, hence the 15-8 versus 13-5 record. But as you say, let's take a look at some of this, because one thing that I think makes a lot of sense for FlyQuest is they're not going for those first dragons, right? They're looking to scale a little bit harder into the late game. But in spite of the fact that they only take 34.8% of first dragons, they still have 60% of dragons overall. So they do start fighting later on, but they really haven't been that early game team. It's more that they understand their comps and power spikes, like you're saying.
I think the first dragon thing is very often a thing because FlyQuest ball lane often picks later in the draft. Like they pick 180 carry and then they sacrifice their support and they get like a bad matchup or like a matchup that they don't win early game. They give 1 dragon and they fight level 6 when PoE is online, right? So I think that it's often because their ball lane has a worse matchup at the cost of PoE having a bad matchup, right? So I think that explains it. And I think for Herald, some teams just don't think Herald is important in the game, and Fly might be one of those teams. I think this is pretty normal stuff, and most teams know that FlyQuest gives dragons early because their dual lane is usually weak early game, both like player-wise, I would say, and also they pick champs that are good in team fights, not champs for lane, right? Like you'll see Pyke from Ignar, you will see Rakan, weak laners that can team fight or roam, and I don't think that those are very good in lane, so it explains the first dragon percentage very well.
Yes, it does. I agree. Cool reflection of the team styles for sure. Thanks to Microsoft for providing those statistics. Were you enlightened by the Microsoft statistics?
Yeah, I think there are some pretty good stats in there. In the program, I think that there are many stats that we can use, but I always say that I think stats aren't worth much if you don't have some sort of like context to back it up with. Yeah. I think that just saying, whoa, look at the DPM or look at the CSD or something like that isn't useful, because sometimes being down 10 CS is winning lane, right? Because your matchup is really bad, or you got really fucked from the draft, or something happened in the game that could happen to anyone, or draft was really bad, or matchup was really bad. And therefore, you being down 10 CS is winning. Like, if you play GP top versus Lucian, and you're down 10 CS in lane, that's good. It's not losing, right? It's a good thing.
Yeah.
But people will be like, oh, up 10 CS, he's so insane, right? This guy's so good, he won lane. But yeah, he's playing Lucian top versus GP. Of course, he won his lane, right? So I think context is important when you use stats to talk about a player's strength and stuff like that. So when people say stuff like FBI and who he smashed doublelift and threes, I agree. They were better in this series, right? But they also had a winning lane matchup all 3 games, which is not like anyone's like fault. It's just TSM picked themselves into losing lanes, right? So yeah, it's their fault in a way.
What I loved about that narrative, by the way, and I want your take on it, is that people were saying, oh yeah, FBI won the Caitlyn Ashe matchup and then the Ashe Caitlyn matchup as if those were the only champions in the lane. Right?
Yeah,
Which I thought was kind of like a ridiculous representation, because we can say that about reverse matchups in solo lanes, right? But we can't say that about dual lanes. So please provide the ignorant fans the context on why it was that FBI won both of those lanes.
Yeah. So I can tell you that if you put Caitlyn versus Ashe, right, which is the first game matchup, and then TSM has Thresh versus Morg, and GS has Morg, right? If you put Caitlyn Morg versus Thresh Caitlyn, Cade Morg can win lane. But I can tell you that Caitlyn and Thresh can't beat Ashe Morg in lane. It's just not possible. And I think that no matter if you swap the FBI and doublelift, and it was doublelift playing Ashe Morg with Huhi versus Treats and FBI playing
Caitlyn
Thresh, I still think the Ashe Morg wins that lane if you assume the synergy is there and all that bad stuff, right? So it's just like, I wouldn't say support difference, but draft difference is like really important to keep in mind here. That I don't know what I would do as Caitlyn Thresh versus Morg Ashe. You can't do anything at all. Also, you have to go cleanse in lane versus Ashe Morg to avoid dying at level 6, whereas Ashe can go TP, which is a huge like laning factor that FBI always does, because FBI plays with lane a lot. Like he does things for lane that helps in lane. So I think it's important to keep that in mind as well, that there isn't much double can do in this lane. Like sure, he picked Caitlyn first pick, which is a strong laner, but I think the bigger problem in the series was Treats or TSM. I don't know who does the drafting in this case, but I think picking Thresh into Morg is troll as a support player, and as a team, it's just bad. So that should stop. And I think that people often say doublelift was gapped by FBI, but that's not really true. Like sure, doublelift played a bad series, but I don't know how I'll be able to lane.
So what you're saying is doublelift was clapped by Parth. That's what you're saying.
I mean, I don't know who is drafting, like if it's like just Parth or just doublelift or just Treats, but I think if your counter picks to Morg are Thresh and Bard, then you didn't prep well enough. Like you have to go into the draft like this. Okay, if we pick Caitlyn and I pick Morg, we pick Soraka, Syra, Karma. Yes? Okay, sure. Then we go ahead and do a draft. If we don't play those champions, and our counter picks to Morgana are like Thresh or Braum or Bard, then maybe we shouldn't play this draft and we should first pick Morgana instead. And if we don't want that because we're afraid who he will play Syra, which he will, because he's like a Syra kind of guy or a Karma kind of guy. He's a lane king player, who he, right? So if you don't want that either, then ban Caitlyn or ban Morg, something like that, right? You can't just do this draft. It was too bad to play, I think, for doublelift, and I don't blame him for getting gapped or whatever people are saying.
Yeah.
Now, for his team fighting, like dying to Mordekaiser or using Kill and E the wrong way into Mordekaiser, not trapping him on his TP in that mid-team fight, that's on him, right? And then the Ashe game, walking into Miller.
I think there's two things, like you're saying, which is that one of them is, did doublelift have an off day? Yes. But also he wasn't helped, by the draft in that thing. Like nobody, I don't think you're trying to say that doublelift didn't play badly, and he played much better the next series, but sometimes you just have a bad day, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And the bad day was combined with the fact that he was having a really bad day too, right? Yeah. And in lane, Threats died in the Bard game and gave FBI first blood, and it doesn't help doublelift that happens, So yeah, I don't know what I would do if I was doublelift in these matchups. I think that losing lane was justified, but obviously things like not being able to space Mordekaiser as Ashe, or not buying Qs if you need it for that kind of playstyle, right? Or not trapping the Mordekaiser TP in front of him, or using your net into 6 to kill him was fine, but then getting hit by Mordekaiser ult again is just bad. And him not buying items for the second time in this split is obviously a really terrible mistake, like a really, really bad one that you can't afford to make. Like the item with the TP thing happened to me twice now.
Yeah.
So I think he had a bad day for sure. But like I said already, support matchups, even jungle matchups, or like whoever has mid push, or like if one team has TF, for example, it matters so much for bot lane because they have TF and Morgana. Now I need cleanse, so I can't go TP. Whereas he has TP, which he can T back with an item by an at the base, maybe give up a wave. Like it matters more than people think. So I think it's important that context is always provided when you say this ADC beat this guy in both matchups. I think both sides matchup of Kill and Ash, right? Because it isn't that simple.
Yeah,
so,
I totally agree with you. I thought that was kind of unfair that people were look, you can call Doublelift shit. Just call him shit for the right reasons, please. That's all I ask.
Yeah.
Call him shit for not buying QSS. Call him shit for not buying items and going to lane. Call him shit for walking into Mordekaiser. Call him shit for all those reasons. But laning, maybe not his fault. Anyway, guys, we're going to take a quick break, do the roundup, and when we come back, we'll have a Puma giveaway, and maybe I will allow you, through my own grace, to ask Zven questions in Twitch chat. I know that's his favorite part of the show, so we'll do a little bit of that, maybe, if you have good questions when we get back.
Your own grace.
Howdy there, Buckaroos and Buckarettes, and welcome to another edition of the Cloud9 Roundup here on the Nines, presented by AT&T. Now, there ain't much League of Legends news this week on account of the teams not playing for Cloud9. But if you were paying close attention, you'd know that 3 of our players, Licorice in the top lane, Blabber in the jungle position, and Zven at AD carry, well, they all made the first LCS All-Pro team for the summer split. And we're looking forward to seeing them play in the playoffs after their bye week coming up this week. Over in Rainbow Six news, well, Cloud9's team takes the 2-0 win against Scars in the Rainbow Six Korean Open, and they sweep GC Busan 3-0 as they are crowned the Rainbow Six Korean Open champions. Another win in the books for Cloud9. Now, it's been a while since we had some Cloud9 Hearthstone news, and unfortunately that news ain't very good this week. Cloud9 Fleury lost 1-3 against Glory in Week 1 of the Hearthstone Grandmasters Tournament. On to some happier news. Well, Cloud9 Valorant, they played in the Knights Gauntlet. Group stage went 3-0 for the boys here at Cloud9, and they beat Homeless and Envy in the playoffs before falling to eventual tournament winner TSM. Still though, they got another chance next week as yours truly over at B-Side. Well, we announced our Pop Flash Ignition Series event, the last one for North America, and Cloud9 is invited. What's more, Cloud9, well, they announced their final player, the 5th one, officially joining the Valorant roster, Vice. Welcome to the team, officially. We'll see you next week. Some tough results coming out of Counter-Strike Global Offensive for Cloud9. They played in that FunSpark Ulti tournament, beating PVO and the New England Whalers, but they fell 0-2 to Chaos Esports Club. What's more, in DreamHack Open, they lost to Team 1 Esports 1-2. Better luck next time, CSGO. Finally, in some organizational news, if you're still having your eye on some of those spring collection threads from Puma with Cloud9, well, good news for you, 50% off right now in the store, so snap them up before they all run out. Finally, happy birthday to our streamer, I Will Dominate, and our other streamer, Vienna, and of course, Perkises from the PUBG mobile team. Wish them a happy belated on Twitter. Well, that does it this week for the Cloud9 Roundup. Now back to the Nines, presented by AT&T.
We're back with more of the Nines live here, presented by AT&T. And also, thanks to Puma, we are going to do a Puma gift card giveaway right now. Remember that you can, in fact, go get half off of the spring collection from Puma and Cloud9 right now. So if you're looking at some of that stuff, or you can get some of the summer gear. But if you are over 18 years old and you live in North America and your fingers are capable of typing hashtag Puma in Twitch chat, which I know is too hard for most of you guys. You have to spell it correctly as well. Then you can win a gift card. And someone in chat from Cloud9 will, of course, be able to tell you who has won as we get towards the end of the show. So while you guys are spamming away, as you are wont to do, Zven, you're now in darkness.
Yeah, my lights
You've
just
changed it. You've
disappeared.
changed it up. You've changed it up.
I think that the lights are like movement sensors or whatever it's called. So I'm like sitting still and I can't reach to like the area of the sensor, so I can't turn it on. Oh, fuck. Whatever. I'm not gonna move.
It's fine.
I'm just sitting here in darkness
You
until
still look beautiful. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Thank you.
Let's get some questions in Twitch chat, and while I wait for those, we can talk about the rest of playoffs. So let's start here. Rank the remaining 6 teams in playoffs. I know you said that you feel like UTL and TSM are kind of the top teams right now.
Yeah.
Rank them 1 to 6 for me. How about that?
So I think we win versus Fly. Then we meet TL, who beats GGS.
Okay.
We beat TL. We go to finals. And in the lower bracket, TL wins the whole thing and places us in the finals. Third place is TSM or GGS. It's a little bit of a toss-up for me. I feel like it won't be a 3-0 like last time. It will be maybe a 4 or 5 game deathmatch. So I think in order, C9, TL, TSM, GGS, Fly, and whoever's last, EG, whatever.
EG.
Yeah, but
All
to be
right.
fair, I could see FlyQuest being like, honestly, even up to 3rd place. They are very up and down, this team. I think Fly isn't that good because we always beat them in finals and regular season. We 2-0 them in both splits, and I feel confident. But Fly beats teams like TL and TSM, so maybe they're pretty good. But they just can't beat us, it feels like to me. So, yeah.
All right, we got some good questions here. One from Hal 90,000. So he's the much more impressive supercomputer than the one in 2001 Space Odyssey. Have you seen that movie?
Sorry, no. Sounds like
Come
a
on,
boomer
guy.
movie.
Okay, well, it's an all-time classic film that you should definitely watch. Anyway, what
Boomer.
changes? It's from. I'm pretty sure it was made before I was born.
Ah, shit.
I'm pretty sure it was made before I was born. All-time classic. It's a Stanley Kubrick movie. Have you seen any Stanley Kubrick movies?
I don't think so.
Really? You haven't seen The
I don't know.
Shining?
Oh, I've seen The Shining.
Okay, there you go. There's one. All right. What changes made GGS so good in the second half of the split?
I don't know. I think they just found their growth, I guess. They understand now to put Demonte on like a mage that can AFK farm for late game and just play towards FBI and Hui, winning lane. That FBI and Hui are both pretty good at playing the winning lane matchups. I think that they aren't that insane in lanes that are equal or lanes that are losing. But they're very good at abusing it when they have winning matchups, and they often draft that way. I think the closer and the ball are pretty good. I think Hanser has been stepping up recently, and I think that the match against TSM was a bit, I won't say lucky, but it's not a clear sign of their strength right now. So I think that we'll see how good they are in the next best 5 they play versus TL. I think just their balling has stepped up a lot in this split, and I think that Hanser and Closer have performed pretty well too. I think Demonte is holding his own most games. He isn't a huge playmaker. He's just there holding his own and not being a liability. And he plays skilling most of the time, so he's just playing Oriana or Sakes, and late game he's strong as fuck, or Syndra. So
Hey, look, not being a liability is the most we can ask of NA mid laners, okay?
yeah, I mean, when you're the weak side, so to speak, he's a mid laner, but like they don't care about him very much in the game. So I think him just farming on a mage is good for their team because they play around top and bot a lot, these guys. So it makes sense.
All right, Cat Deer asks, what does Zven, that's you're Zven, think of
Zven, okay.
LEC right now with Rogue qualifying, G2 looking good, Schalke going on the big run? Do you think the level of play in LEC is pretty good right now?
I thought Mad Lions was going to qualify for Worlds instead of Rogue. I was surprised they lost the last week like they did. But yeah, I think Rogue and Mad Lions have both stepped up this split, which is nice to see. I think G2 is making a last minute resurgence, I guess. I think they'll be strong in playoffs, and I think that Schalke could make a run based on the last couple games, but I do think Worlds looks like Mad Lions, G2 broke, and then I guess the last spot, the new fourth spot, is up for grabs. But yeah, I think the level of LC is higher than the LCS. That's the question. That's pretty obvious, but yeah, I think the LC is pretty good right now. But to be fair, I don't think they look that insane. I think LPL looks a lot better right now. So there's that.
I think most people would agree with that. Here's a more casual question. What activities do you do in the house to relax and have fun, especially because you've been trapped there together since March?
We don't do much. We have
You can
our
watch
morning
Stanley
workouts.
Kubrick movies. You know, you could do that. Educate yourself
That's
on
true.
film history. 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Sometimes we watch TV series together, like one episode at night or something like that. But
What
generally,
TV series have you been watching?
we watched. Let me think. Fuck. We watched in Korea. We watched The Witcher.
Yep.
One episode
I
per
love
night.
that.
Not bad. I liked it actually, personally.
I'm a big Witcher fan.
What did we watch, man? I can't even remember anymore. We watched something called The Stranger. It wasn't too good. We watched. The fuck did we watch, man? We watched You as well. Dude, I can't even remember what we watched. We watched some of the series, but I can't remember them. What's been really bad? Dark has its last one. That
I've heard
Tim's
that's
watching.
really good, but I haven't seen that.
Yeah, that's the current one. There's one more I'm forgetting about. We watched it recently. Mr. Robot was something we started watching, and we kind of like stopped watching it for a while.
It starts good, but
in C9, we can't watch things that have like a good story with lots of dialogue and character development. We need something like, we need action, and we need girls, and we need like people fucking dying all the time, because otherwise this game are like, oh, this is so boring, man, I can't focus. So yeah, our series need to have like action or girls or people dying or like constant
that
like
seems to
fighting.
suit their play style, you know, Niski and Blabber, you know, constant action.
Like they can't appreciate like a good story. Like these guys can't watch Game of Thrones, for example. Like there's no chance, right? No chance to hell they can watch Game of Thrones, because dialogue or character development is nothing in these guys' brains. So we have to cater to our audience here, right? So, but besides that, we have our morning workouts. We have scrims from 12 to 5 every day, draft meetings, content, and then just for me it's a solo queue the whole night. And yeah, that's it. We can't go outside right now, obviously, so it's just normal scrim days every single day. Off days, just oinking in our rooms, basically. Can't really do anything.
There was a question earlier that I thought was interesting. If you could pick one player in the world to play against that you've never played against before, who would you want to play against?
One team or player?
One player.
Huh. I don't know.
Like, is there an AD carry or a support out there that you think would be really fun to try and play against?
I'm thinking. I think I've played against a lot of the legendary players already. Like I played against Faker or Uzi or Ruler, right? So I don't like think there's someone that I'm missing on my list, but I guess it could be fun playing against Karsi, for example. I've talked to him before about Senna Wukong or Son Lux, so I think it could be fun to play against him. I haven't played against Deft, actually. He's like one of the last greats I haven't played against in Korea, and he's right now on top of the scene, so maybe Deft or... Yeah. I want to play against the new Chinese ball-ins like LWX, FPX, or well, not anymore, right? But like Jackie Love or LWX or, you know, one of those ball-ins.
I've never been terribly impressed by either Jackie Love or LWX.
Yeah, same.
So
I'm on the impression that, no offense to them, they're great players.
Yeah,
but
they're fine. They do their job on their
think
team, but they're not like the big carries most of the time.
I think that in both IG and FPX, if you replace the ADC with someone else of somewhat their skill level, their results in the games will be the same.
Well, we actually saw that on IG. So.
Well, it's different, but yeah, I mean, like during their Worlds runs, right? Like if you replaced LWX at Worlds with FPX when they won Worlds with someone else, I think the team remains largely the same level, and the outcome of the games will be the same.
I agree.
But yeah, I'll have to play against like JG or Top or IG or something like that. It could be fun, I think. Playing against the new blood, I guess, of the LPL.
All right, let me. Here's a question for you. Very popular topic of conversation in the league scene these days. Which C9 player loses to the shopkeeper the most? Who gets scammed by Boris, Zven?
Boris. I don't think we have any tier 3 subs to Boris in our team, but I saw a lot of discussion about Eric's build on Shen versus Team Liquid, that he bought a lot of armor versus triple AP. And I felt like it was fine to buy Frozen Heart and like armor in that game because they had one player, Team Liquid, and it was their Ezreal, right? Like Syndra was like useless as fuck. Top lane was 0-4. Jungle, whatever. I don't think anyone cares what a jungler in Team Liquid. And I think that him buying armor versus Ezreal was fine that game. But I saw a lot of people flaming him for it on Twitter and stuff like that. So I don't know. But I think I build correctly most of the time, at least. So
yeah, but
I think
that's not even fair, dude. You play AD carry. That's like the easiest position to itemize for. You're just
it's
pure,
true.
like, in your case, it's literally just like pure stats, and the math either works or it doesn't, right? Like, it's not confusing
That's
what
true.
your first two items are on any AD
That's
carry.
true.
Like, no, seriously though, can you tell me is there an AD carry out there that you would itemize differently, the first two items, depending on the state of the game or the enemy team composition?
No, I don't think there's much variance, but there's like things like, for example, on Ezreal, you can buy Haunting Guys for Lion Race, or you can buy Bork, or you can buy Triforce versus Gauntlet.
Okay, the only like the difference.
I know.
The difference is I just asked about the first two items. I agree that there are situational picks after that, but at least with Ezreal's a good example because at least you're thinking like second item, do I want Trinity Force or Iceborne, even though they are sort of they function kind of the same.
I mean, I think every game there's some, like Senna, for example, you can go Black Cleaver after Manamute, you can go full lethality, you can go lethality into like Last Whisper, or you can go Black Cleaver into Fire Cannon. Like there's options here and there. Lucian, you can go full crit, or you can go Bork, Black Cleaver, Bork, Essence Reaver. I think there are options here and there, and it's important to choose the right one. But I generally think that it's pretty easy. Like, okay, do they have armor? Yes or no? It's like two different answers, right? That's all you have to think about. For Ashe, you can go Blade or Essence Reaver. For CDR, for more arrows, more Ws. Or Bork for killing tanks. So I think there is like some room for AD carriers to think with their heads instead of just like, okay, I Fire Cannon this, right? Kaylin, you can go.
Yeah.
No, I think some people go Storm as the first item on Kaylin, and I think it's not bad, but yeah.
I agree with you that, there is some variation, like you're saying, but I also think that there is significantly less variation for AD carry than compared to many other roles. You don't have a chance to lose to Boris, to get scammed by Boris as much as other people do.
Yeah, for sure. I also think that there's a lot of people that say things like buying double Black Cleaver is bad or Senna Black Cleaver is bad, but it's not true at all. I think it's really fine. I prefer lethality on Senna as well, but I think Black Cleaver isn't bad at all. And I think people in the community have been like not brainwashed, but like a lot of people think certain builds or certain items are really, really bad, but it isn't the case. Like Black Cleaver Lee isn't that terrible, for example, just because you have only 2 damage dealers that deal physical damage. That doesn't make it terrible, right? It's still more HP, CR is good, like it's fine. I think this whole losing the shopkeeper or Boris, whatever thing has gone like a little out of control, where people think certain things are so bad it loses the game. I agree with the general thing of like Morello is bad if they don't have healing. I agree. Like buying PD and Maul together is usually bad, right? Like these kind of things I agree with. Buying Mercs versus full AD, bad. But like buying Black Cleavers on 2 people or buying Black Cleaver on set instead of Triforce, it's really not that bad. And things like gold or like tank stats are something to consider as well, and build path, whatever. Like it's not that bad as people make it out to be. And
yeah, of course,
games aren't lost in champs like or like in the shop, right? Most of the time.
I agree with you that it is very rare for a game to be lost by making a poor shop decision at the professional level, right? When you're still making relatively reasonable decisions. But I'll let you in on a secret of the internet, Zven. So when
Okay.
people, they will always frame things in extremes. So you're right. It's just, the answer is this ideal? And the answer can be no. But the question is, how far from ideal is it? And the answer is usually not a whole lot, not enough to like lose a game. But
Yeah.
when a player does something that isn't exactly perfectly ideal, if I'm a pleb, then what I do is I call it super stupid because it makes me feel smart, as if somehow I am more knowledgeable or better at the game than a pro player, right? So that's what I do to make myself feel good, even though I'm just a simple pleb and an idiot.
It
So
sounds
you
like
can't
you've
get
dealt with,
tilted by that.
plebs a
You
lot.
can't get you can't get drawn into their trap, Zven. You can't get drawn into their trap. You just have to
Yeah.
say, I'm a king and they are plebs, and I will ignore them as they scream at my castle from outside.
Do you tell yourself that often or no?
I've been telling myself that for years because it's the only way you stay sane, Sven.
That's
It's
true.
the only way you stay
Yeah.
sane. And I'm sure you know that.
Yeah, I mean, I think like I try to avoid Reddit and Twitter comments a lot if I can, but once in a while I go down to a fucking wormhole of
No.
of comment sections and I read things that are just wrong, and then people are agreeing with that guy who thinks that. So it's important that you don't browse, echo chambers like Reddit, for example, because there's so many wrong opinions out there that are just like cycled from that person, and then it fucks with your brain, I think. So I try to avoid reading Reddit and Twitter comments for the most part. Yeah. I think that this whole shopkeeper losing thing is like out of control right now. But I mean, sure.
I think it's an interesting conversation when you have it reasonably, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Huni buying Gnar with Sterak's is useless. I think BB buying Triforce as River Sterak's on GP against GS was bad compared to like Landbase or IE, right? But I don't think that it's a game losing mistake from them that lost the whole game solo. Sure, there are better items, but we shouldn't say like, oh, this guy is so fucking bad, cancel this guy, he's boosted as fuck, and remove him from the game. Because he didn't buy the best item possible in that game, right? I do agree that sometimes it matters a lot, like buying PD Maw from Turtle, that one game wasn't the best buy at all, it was really bad, but besides PD and Maw in the same build, and like, obviously terrible choices, it's overstated how much it impacts the game.
I will say the one time where I felt that in this past week people really did lose to the shopkeeper was Double Lift when he decided not to visit the shopkeeper. That is the true mistake in my mind.
Yeah, that's a fact. And I agree, we should. Yeah, that was terrible. I mean, the first time, I get it, it happens, but the second time he did it, it was really like, whoa, that's just not a thing that can happen to you twice. And I think that, in general, it's important we hold people accountable for buying the wrong items on champions, but we also should not overreact too hard when they buy something that's like slightly less effective for the specific game. It's not that insane of a deal, I think.
Yeah, but then they can't say that they're smarter than you, Zven, so.
Yeah. I mean, I think like, for example, Eric buying Frozen Heart on Shen isn't a terrible item, right? It gives armor and CDR. I think it's fine.
All right. Well, enough of that about that. We're over our time. Thank you very much for joining us on this episode of The Nines presented by AT&T. Sven, it was very interesting to get your takes on the lane matchups in the meta. Can't wait to see you guys play this week up against FlyQuest and show your new strats that you've been promising us throughout this show. Right?
I think everyone will enjoy it. Yeah. I think it will be a banger of a series.
All right.
So I'm excited.
Really? It's not just going to be a 3-0 and boring?
Yeah, probably.
So, hardly a banger then, hardly a banger. But good luck, and we'll watch your games later this week. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Bye.